After watching that video and think about why does this matter to you? Why do you care about, or why should you care? Why do you think you should care about the people who were here? So not necessarily the kind of conversation we had yesterday about what happened at the mill, but who was here. Take a minute, think about it for a minute before we chat about it. Anyone want to start us off?
Yeah, when the guy said there were other towns, like the Japanese town, I never I'll scan the area, but I couldn't find there's other towns, so I was like, oh, so it's just this, so where did the others go? Because I thought the other houses that were there were other houses, and I was like, did the other houses get destroyed and then built into new ones, or something else happened, or did they just vanish?
So thinking a little bit about who we don't see anymore. Okay. Why are you calling someone else, Danny?
Just like Danny, I had no idea there were Chinese, Philippines, and Spanish, and a lot of people living here, and there were so many people living in the wood mill to produce wood for the boats.
So you know how in the Port Lakely behind the harbor that we went, there were a lot of houses? How would they fit that? Because that space was really small when we went to Harbor yesterday.
Smaller than we thought.
Are you calling someone else who might want to add to that?
I think possibly that maybe trees grew in the spots that the homes were, and we didn't really see that much space.
One thing that I really care about this thing is because if it wasn't here, then it probably would have screwed up the timeline and the events that occurred. And I think that this generation has lived a lot over time, and most likely that windmill helped by helping the humans advance in building. And we have a lot of, and we have made a bunch of advancements in building and technology, and that's probably what helps with the reason why we care about this mill. Because without it, we would have most likely a totally different timeline. Totally different events.
That's interesting. Mason, pick someone. Let's hear from someone who hasn't said something yet.
David.
What?
Nathan, what do you think? Or did you say David or Nathan?
Yeah,
David, what do you think?
I think it would probably change it a lot because without the people, the giant power mills wouldn't be here, and all the boats that they sent to be created would not be created.
Pick someone, David.
Nathan.
Good. Nathan, what do you think?
I think that it's like this. If it was not fair, then kind of like Mason, then a lot of events wouldn't have happened. Yes.
So what I'm hearing is that there's a general thought about the positives of these people being here, right? Is that it advanced a lot of history by creating technology around these boats and these boats being built and shared with the whole world. Nathan, you want to call on someone?
Well, the timeline would be messed up, and it makes perfect sense, and I agree with it. And it would be
want to come back to
Guess
you?
I'll have it.
Yeah, I only have one word left.
Why don't you pick someone else and you can come back to you?
Risa. I think the wood mill did a very big part for
For what?
wood and the boats, and maybe even the houses if they sell the wood not only for boats but for houses, and probably the wood men and people need to stay up very late or need to go there very early to get everything ready and chopping the wood and polishing it and just making it perfect for a big boat. If it's one small crack and one hole, the whole ship might go down. So it needs to be a pretty perfect.
So you need like people to make sure that that's going to
Yeah.
happen. You said who you were calling. Got your thought back.
Yeah.
Again.
So don't jinx it. We probably wouldn't be like very united as people because it brought like all the communities together and not just like one community versus having like tons of people, tons of different races and they're all working together. So we probably still could be pretty mean to each other if we didn't like do Hita.
Well, it's kind of cool that like a lot of places get together, like Italy, China, and the thing is that if place like exploded and the Great Depression came, we'd still be like that, and then that would be kind of better. Except we can't really stop it. But anyway, I feel like that if people might think that if we did that again, it would help, but it's not really gonna help because it's kind of that like wars stop people from basically like countries from liking each other anymore. So, but I still feel like there's a chance that could.
Can you say more about what you mean better?
So it would be a more peaceful world, and there wouldn't be a lot of disruption to people's lives, like how in Syria there is the war, and it's disrupted a lot of people's lives. Like my friend, her mom's friend helps the people in Syria, so she's told us a lot about it, and it's really sad life because it's really cold and they have to walk all the way to other countries, and a lot of countries won't let them in.
So you're thinking if we still all worked in the same place in harmony, that maybe we wouldn't have the same issues? Okay, calling someone else.
About the timeline thing and how it's gonna change it. If it didn't happen, the timeline would be different, but we don't know if other things will happen. So, like, instead of having like a giant windmill, a giant power mill, you could have a crab army hideout.
Yes, that could be true.
So yes, I love the creativity, David, that we don't know what could have happened in the future.
Paradox idea.
I do want us to stray away from
King crab.
the king crab idea only because I think where this conversation is going is really awesome and rooted in things that we know have happened.
So stay on the topic.
And I want us to focus on things that we know theoretically could have happened, but I appreciate the creative thought around, you know, if the mill had continued, kind of like Anahita mentioned, and Mason mentioned, and David mentioned, we don't know what would be happening now if the mill had never closed, right? So I appreciate that that thought. David, why don't you pick someone else?
Danny.
I would say I still wouldn't think it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't mess up the timeline because I know lumber was like really important back then for sailing, like to me, like family members from other countries. But if it did mess up the timeline, it wouldn't like mess up like what happened with our technology or anything. Our technology would still be here, but only the story would be different. Yeah.
What would be different?
The story like this, like it wouldn't be like happened. So yeah.
You calling on?
Shannon.
Well, I do think that your point is right, but this was like a very important time because we have like a lot of history there, and it's an important part of Islandwood. So maybe some people here, maybe it would affect the way they would think about Islandwood, and then one thing basically leads to like a bunch of other things, and it can lead to like anything. So I think that it could very much change it.
So on that point, Shannon, your initial point about how it affects how people think of Islandwood. What about outside of Islandwood? So y'all don't live at Islandwood, right? You live on Mercer
I've been here
Island.
for 4 days.
You've been here for 4 days, but you live on Mercer Island. Why is this important for your individual lives? So think about that for a minute, because I think we're hovering around that a little bit. I know that Mason talked about the things that he feels like are most important to him. Anahita mentioned a connection to her. Yeah, the part of history that is important to you in this story. Anahita mentioned a person in her life that has a similar or a different experience. So I want us to think a little bit about outside of the Islandwood world, right? We're hovering around it. Why is it important? Why is this a conversation important? So why does it matter that we're talking about how history maybe has changed or didn't change or could have changed in the past? Why is it important that we're talking about how different communities work together? Why is it important that, I feel like there was another comment that I wanted to bring up. Why is Islandwood important? And Shannon, just thank you, Mason. And Shannon brought up how it's changed how Islandwood has been perceived. So why is that important to your lives individually as human beings, as Mayuko, as Shannon, as Noble, as Nathan, as David, as Subeg, etc.? Think about that for a second.
Why is Islandwood important, right?
Why is this conversation important? Yeah. In terms of you as individual people, not as Islandwood. Noble, I haven't heard from you yet.
Well, I don't have something to say.
Do you want to think about it for another second?
I just want to relax.
I'm going to come back to you, okay? Because I want everyone to share in this conversation. So I'm going to come back to you. Think about it for a little bit, okay? Mason?
So the reason why Islandwood is important and why we get to come here is important is because if I didn't from here, then I would have to sit in an office all day or school because I would need to get the permission slips, and if I didn't come here, then I would have to sit in an office all day, and I would not like to do that. That's why coming to Islandwood is important for me.
So can you connect that to why this conversation that we're having is important and why the history of these people is important? Can you connect?
It's important because if it wasn't for this thing dying out and somebody wanting to make Islandwood here, then most likely we wouldn't even be here, because it's like, if this thing, like, if that mill would have stayed alive for like 2 weeks longer, this might have not been here, because the person who wanted to buy up some land might have just came here for like, I want to see if I can buy some land for a couple of days and then I'm going to leave. And it's important because it's like, well, this thing, we couldn't even have Islandwood if it just changed the forecast by 1 or 2 days.
Yeah, the time, yeah, exactly. So Debbie Brader may not have been able to buy this land if the mill had never closed.
Yeah, if the mill just stayed here for 1 day, it can.
A little bit longer than that, remember, because the mill closed in the 1930s and Islandwood didn't open until 2002. But your point is very, very valid. Why are you calling someone, Mason?
Sue Biggs, you haven't said anything.
No,
Sue Biggs.
Still thinking too big?
I called Sue Biggs.
We'll come back to him. He's still thinking. Might pick someone else.
Dan, I don't know your two names, so you.
Shannon.
Shannon, I need that.
Well, it's like, so we wouldn't have like, we probably wouldn't have like that much fun if it weren't for like the knowing about like this topic, because we could have been doing something else, but this we would learn about like how Island was made and why it's so important, and it makes it like more fun to see like when it was made, how it was made.
Annabelle, you have a thought you want to share now? Come back to you.
Oh yeah. The reason why we need to come here, which is Islandwood, you wanted to teach us about ecosystems.
So can you connect that to the video and talking about the people who were here in the mill?
Oh yeah. So it was the black and white pictures that it's made a long time ago, but everyone died already in the long time ago.
And why should we care that it happened a long time ago? Why do you care?
Well, I just listened to the video and I just saw some black and white pictures.
And it's important to see things that happened a long time ago?
Yeah.
You want to add anything else to that, Annabelle?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You calling someone else?
Alright. I don't see any raised hands.
No.
Subig, you haven't said anything yet, and I know you were still thinking.
Maybe maybe it's so important if Islandwood was here. Wait. Maybe Islandwood is important because since it tell us the history of all these things and ecosystems. Islandwood's important because we get to miss school for 4 days.
Yeah, because we don't really learn that much here. I'm just gonna with that.
So, I love that we're adding on some more. David, can you say a little bit more about what we're doing here in kind of a positive statement versus what we're missing versus what we're gaining? You turn that statement into a positive statement.
Islandwood's important because it teaches you about nature, and normal schools like West Mercer and I forgot the other school's name. North Beach doesn't teach you about that stuff besides science class when you're doing stuff about the ecosystem.
Can you connect that specifically to the video we watched and the stuff about the harbor?
This is in nature, and power mills are just like cutting down trees.
And it looks like Danny wants to add to that.
Okay, Danny.
So another reason why it's part of the ecosystems is because for like how many pounds of wood that I would say Vigilant is in that picture that you're on right now. You can see that they're not even using some wood that hasn't been used, but they're just leaving it there like if there was nothing. So it's kind of like the lunchroom when she says, how can I find other ways of like food waste and like compost and landfill? But they're just like doing it like if it was landfill, like if there was nothing to. But right now, like today, when we're on the beach, we won't see that, but it's like one log near the house. So yeah.
So I hear that you're talking about like the resources that are being used, and I like that you brought up the connection with the food waste with Joanne. Is that thinking about how much is left over?
I can still see the numbers from part of logs that have been cut.
Yeah,
I
all the
still
ones
see-
here.
but I will see like numbers like which one that we use for like ships and all. So I saw some like numbers for that.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Was there someone else who had a hand raised that wanted to add something to Danny just said? Any final comments? So a couple things I heard. a lot of ideas around important to know about our history. I heard important to know about the communities that were here. And I heard important to know about the resources that were used, right? Because that's the wood connecting to that food waste. And I loved this discussion about we don't know what would have happened now. Like, we don't know if Islandwood would even be here if the mill was still here, if the mill had never closed, if the explosion had never happened. One final thought that I want us to bring us back to is Anahita brought up the connection to current events that are happening now. And I just want to leave us on like a last point about how we can use what we know about the mill and we know about how these communities interacted to interact better as our own community, right? Because were the mill workers a community? Yeah, what kind of communities did we see in the videos besides the mill workers? What kind of other communities did we see and what did we talk about, Raisa?
The families,
The families. Shannon?
the cultures,
The different cultures. What specific cultures did we see in the video?
like
That
like Japanese, like Philippines, Native Americans, Hispanics. I can't remember all of them.
There's like,
Oh yeah, Finland,
Italy.
Finland.
Italy.
Italy.
There's a lot of Norwegians.
There were definitely a lot of Norwegians. Iceland. Hawaii. So Hawaii was, well, I guess Hawaii wasn't part of the United States at that point. So that's its own thing. Mason, did you see any other communities that were missing?
There was 2 new somethings.
New
New England. No, not New Mexico.
No, not New Mexico.
New England.
New
Zealand.
Newfoundland, I think, was the one that I heard.
Newfoundland.
I think it was something like New Zealand. Switzerland.
New Zealand, we're hearing a lot of news.
Newfoundland. We settled this
Newfoundland.
if the thing was 8 minutes to 12 minutes long.
Okay, so thinking about those communities and how they interacted